Okay, in today's class, what we'll see. So let me little recap from the last class. So we were
Mhm.
talking about the components, right? The modules that are available in our Mule palette. So we talked about the scopes for the like flow scope, right? Async, cache. Now today, I'm going to talk about a very important scope or component we can say that is called batch job. Okay, it's very important. So if we have requirement of, okay, let's talk about the use cases, but we'll talk about in today's class, we'll talk about batch processing. Okay, let me change this. Okay, so batch processing required when, let's say you have a requirement of something, syncing two data sources. Okay, so for example, you want to synchronize the data between, so for example, let's say we have this side NetSuite. Okay, and this side I have something called SFDC, Salesforce. Now I want to sync contacts between these two guys. Okay, this will be a bulk process. I don't want to go ahead and do, one contact at a time. Okay, this is the first use case where I need a batch processing, where I can take all the contacts, go to SFDC and sync it, or a better approach. Okay, instead of doing one contact at a time. Second use case, I have, let's say, I want to extract, transform, and load data to a target system. We call it ETL job:
Yep.
extract, transport, and load.
Transfer.
Yeah. For example, I have a CSV file. Okay, flat file we call it. Okay, comma separated, and we talked about this file, right? This is the best file to share the data over network.
Network.
So I want to extract, transform, and load to Hadoop, let's say. In this scenario, I need a batch processing. Third scenario could be you want to process, let's say, large incoming data. In this scenario, we need batch processing. Now let's talk about, do we have any component in our MuleSoft who can handle these kind of scenarios, first, second, and third? Yes, we have. And I would say that is the best component I would see, in the palette, in Mule 4. They have changed a lot of things in Mule 4 for batch processing. And this is exclusive, right? Exclusive to Mule enterprise runtimes, batch processing. So let's talk about, do we have any component over here in our Mule palette? Yes, we have something called, if you go to just search for batch, you'll find batch aggregator, batch job, and batch tick. There are three things. Okay, we'll talk about these three things one by one. So let me first drag a batch job. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll go to our favorite flow. I'll go ahead and say new project. Okay, so meanwhile, what I'll do, so this will be our batch job component. Okay, so here you'll find two sections. One section on complete, very important. We'll talk about it in a moment, why we need and how important this on complete section. And you'll be having processing section. In processing section, you can have n number of steps. You can have n number of steps. Inside the steps also, you can have here processors and you can have here aggregators. Okay, so here inside the batch, so you can have processors in this section. So this will be a P section, this will be a section, aggregator. So aggregation logic you can write it here. So this way you can have n number of steps. Once all these steps are done, so I'll say this one step 1, this is step 2, and keep on, you can adding. Okay, keep on adding. On complete, okay, once you are done with this, then you'll be at this location or this stage. We'll talk about it. Okay, now batch processor actually works in 3 steps. Okay, first step is, it says, okay, so whenever you get, oh sorry, so whenever we get data, what we do first, this data, right? I just draw the small diagram, but this is actually a huge data. Okay, so first step it will do, it will load and dispatch. Now let me talk about this, what this means. So when we drag and drop batch job, we configure it. Okay, so the configuration, it will be by default, if we go with this, there will be 100 records in a batch. Okay, and no other configuration. So whatever records I have here, okay, let's say I have 1000 records. What it will do by default, it will divide this guy into a 100 record batches. And these batches will get loaded to, these batches will be loaded to a backend queue called persisted VM queue. This will be used in the backend. That is what load and dispatch. All the batches will get loaded into a VM queue, which is persisted VM queue. All the batches will be executed in asynchronous mode and multiple thread. Asynchronous and multiple threads. Now we'll talk about how many threads you'll actually get it for executing any batch job. Okay, so there is a formula. Okay, minimum of 2 into, so number of cores available on your machine. 4 cores, then 8 threads will be given. If there are 8 cores, then 16 threads will be assigned to your batch job. So number of cores available on your machine, comma, number of records divided by batch size. Third, there is a max concurrency parameter or property on our batch job, concurrency. Whoever is minimum of this. So for example, if we take this scenario, 10,000 records or 10,000 records, 100 as the batch size. Let's say you have 8 cores on your machine and you didn't assign anything for the max concurrency right now. Because default, right? So 1000 divided by 100, that becomes 10. 2 into 8, that becomes 16. And max concurrency is not assigned, that becomes infinity. So what will be the number of threads? 10, right? So 10 threads will be assigned to our batch job. This is the formula. Minimum of this. Okay, so that will be get decided in load and dispatch process. Okay, now second process is, or section or stage is process now. process these batches in asynchronous mode by multiple threads. And third one is on complete. Now, whatever you do, do in load, dispatch, and process. So for example, how many records were loaded, how many records were failed, how many records were successfully processed, all that transaction information, okay, or the job details, those will be there in a job, in an object called job instance. In that job instance, that will be available on this on complete stage. So if you want to keep this for audit point of view in the future, right? Or we can say this is a matrix of the execution of that job. Okay, that information will be automatically out of the box available as a payload in on complete stage. In on complete stage, what I can do, I can insert this data into a database or write it to a file, so that in future I can reuse this data for audit point of view or for my file, for my reuse. Okay, so whenever first step, whenever load and dispatch, this batch job will get assigned a batch job ID, and behind the scene it will load it to a VM, persistent VM queue, each batch. Okay, and then each batch will get processed by multiple threads, and how many threads will get assigned by this formula. Is that clear? Now let's have a look at it. Yes. How the batch job look like. Okay, that is scope first batch. Let's search for the batch. First we'll drag a batch job over here. Have a look at it. So we have processing section, right? See, and I can have n number of batch steps, and then I'll be having on complete section. Now at the job level, see here. So this is the selected component right now. See here, max. We will talk about this max failed record later. And we have job instance ID, we have batch block size, max concurrency, and target. Right now, 0 is assigned. That means immediately if there is an error while processing the record, stop. Okay, stop processing. Okay, it will stop over there. Okay. If I say -1 here, that won't stop. That will be your negative integer number. If you give there -1 means infinity always, right? So it won't stop on any error. Then if you give a positive number, okay, if you give a positive number, what happens? It will actually wait till that number reaches. So let's say if you assign 10 over there, till 10 after errors 10 occurred in your execution, till that point it will wait. It will keep on processing your records. It won't stop anywhere. The moment 11th record fails, right, it will stop the processing. It will go to the on complete. Okay. 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 So let's have a look at it at batch level. So batch job level, we have seen these properties. I don't want to configure anything right now. Let's look at what will be available at the batch level, batch tape level. Now, if you look at the batch tape level, there are few properties. Okay, accept expression. So the records which are getting processed, right? The records which are the batches which are getting processed, I can write at batch level, batch tape level, I can write a condition. Hey, inside this batch, I want to process only specific batches. For example, I'll write an accept expression saying that, hey, from the batch, if the number is even, then give it to me for processing only. Sorry, even, okay, even or odd. Second, so I can write a conditional approach over there or filtering criteria that from the batches, I want only these batches. Second scenario could be Second property I have accept policy. Inside the accept policy, what I can say, hey, I can process all the batches, all the records, or I can process only failure records, or I can process no failure records. So definitely when we are processing the records, right, some batches will fail. Now in some scenario, what I want to do, from these 1,000 records, whichever records are failing, I want to write it to a database, or I want to write to a CSV file so that I can send it back to the source team, that I'll ask them to, hey, have a look at it, review these records. Is there any data issue in those records, or something is wrong with my system? So for tracking point of view, I don't want to lose any data. I'll write those error records. So I can have only step here, which will accept only failure records. So from my complete 1,000 records, all failure records will be captured by this step. It will go here and it will write it to the either DB or to the file. Am I clear? Or publish it to some VM queue and then have one more flow to really see that data, whether it's a data issue, then send it to the source system. If the data is okay, then send it back to the processing flow back. That could be the many reasons of failure scenario, right?
You said about even and odd. I didn't get that point.
Yeah, okay. I'll come back to that. Okay. So for example, now we have these records, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and let's say my batch size is equal to 1. Now what will happen? Now I have batch job. Inside the batch job and the batch step number 1, I want to only process odd numbers from here. Process odd. In batch 2, I want to process only even. Because on these numbers, based on the property of that number, I wanted to process on some other flow. I keep on writing T here, but it's even, okay? Now from this batch, how will you identify? These all are successful records. I cannot say go ahead and this one. This property I cannot say. Right? Only I have criteria here. What I say, okay, whenever pause you're getting, so I'll write the database script here and I'll say payload mod 2 double equal to 0. This kind of logic I'll write and say that, okay, in this batch, I'll only handle even numbers. And I could have, maybe I'll go ahead and I'll add a flow reference here. And that flow reference will, I'll be having some logic to process that data. Right? This is a one scenario. In second batch step, what we'll do? We'll process the even numbers. Okay, so for example, some scenario could be like this, right? Okay. Hey, boss, send all even numbers to SAP, send all odd numbers to Salesforce in bulk. Okay. So that scenario fits here. So that accept policy will decide that.
So we can add the process, another process records here.
Yeah. So if you see here, right? I mean, I'll go ahead and we'll go to batch job again. As I mentioned, right? You can have n number of batch steps. See here now.
Okay.
Batch step 2, batch step 3. There is no limit, okay? 4. Now on each batch, you can have different kind of processing.
Got it.
Clear? Okay. Now let's come back here again to my now. So once this guy is processing, let's say my requirement is once those records are done, right? Let's say, for example, so let's say here we are processing 100 record, right? In one shot, 100 record here. Those records will be processed inside my batch step one by one in this section. Okay, whatever section we are seeing right now here, this section. this processor section will process those records. So if I take the screenshot of this, okay, if I take the screenshot of this, give me just a second. Okay, so if you look at this scenario, so let's say we have 1000 records. Now the batches by default will be divided by 100. So I'll get 10 batches. Okay, so my queue is loaded with all those 10 batches. Now each batch will be taken by single thread. Okay, and like that we'll be having multiple threads. So those multiple threads will be executing this batch job in different processing section, right? So this batch step will get executed by 100 records, and once you come inside this batch step, batch job will take 100 records, okay, in one shot. But when you come inside, this flow reference or this processor section will be executed in sequence. Sequential, synchronous. Okay, so I'll be having here 10 batches. These 10 batches will be executed by different threads. We are picking one thread from there. So if that thread you pick it, right, we'll get only 100 records. Those 100 records will come to this batch job, entire batch job. Those 100 records will start executing in batch step number 1. Inside the batch step number 1, I have two sections. One is processor section, other one is aggregator section, P and A. This processor section will be executed sequentially. That's what I'm trying to say here. Now, for example, 100 records, I got it one by one, those will get executed. I have a requirement, write those process records to CSV file. Now, do you think the once this processed, I'll go and write it to file? Again, I'll have to write it in file one by one? No, that is not a good idea. I'll go ahead and I'll write either 100 record in one shot to the file, or maybe sometime you'll be having some restriction on the file also. Let's say your file wants only 20 records. You cannot have more than 20 records in CS file. Just a hypothetical scenario I'm taking, okay? Okay. So I was working for a client, and that client was having only, that client was having restriction on 200 record you can have in your file. So if you change our scenario, 1000 records here, and if you make it 200 records, that's the exact scenario I was talking about. Now 1000 records will come here, and those will get processed one by one, right? Now, how to pick or how to remember whether those 200 records are done or not, right? So there is a aggregator section option here. In the aggregator section, I'll configure, okay, once 200 records are done, give me those 200 records, I'll write it to CSV file. Now have a look at it. I'll be keep on jumping here and there, okay? So now if you look at my batch processing section now, we'll go to batch aggregator section here. Okay, in batch aggregator section, see aggregator size. I'll say 200 here. So this batch aggregator will wait till 200 records are processed one by one. The moment 200th record is done, those 200 records will be given to this batch aggregator. And batch aggregator, what it will do? It will go ahead, right? It will take either FTP, SFTP, or file. So we'll go ahead and say SFTP, whichever you want, you can go ahead and add it here. Those 200 record will be one shot to be returned to the target system. Instead of doing multiple network calls, we are doing only one call to write that file to SFTP. Or in other case, what I'll do, I can go ahead and add a database bulk insert. In one shot, those 200 records will be returned to the database. So I can avoid those round trips. Am I clear so far?
Yes, but
okay, one record at a
yeah.
time, processed by flow reference. This batch aggregator will wait till the threshold value, whatever we are setting here, which is 200. Once this 200 record is processed, it will go ahead and take those 200 records, and whatever operation you wanted to have here, whether you want to publish it to the VM queue or external message broker, or you want to write it to the database, or you wanted to write it to the file, whether local file or network file. Am I clear so far?
Okay, so
Yeah.
one question.
Yes, go ahead.
So 200 records will be written in one CSV file, right?
Yes.
If we okay. So what there is 1,000 records. So it will append or create the new file if we
It's up
have.
to you. It's up to you. The scenario which you have, we are talking about here. Here in this case, not in this case, we are saying I want 200 records in one file. So when you're writing your file, every time you need to say create new file. Create new file. So every file will have only 200 records. So multiple files will be created at target system, whether you SFTP, FTP, or local file store. So accordingly,
but,
while writing your file, right, you need to go name that. You can use now function, or you can add something unique in your file name, so it never gets overridden. It always create new file.
Okay, so
5 files will be there.
this is scenario. Okay,
Hmm.
this is scenario. Okay, we have 1,000 record
Okay.
for a day. Okay.
For a day.
And,
okay.
And we need to write it down in a one CSV file that 1,000 record.
Okay.
For that day, and for another day, it should create the new file.
Okay.
So should we write down 200 or 1,000 at there, or do we need to like if we want it to process in a batch, so 200 records 5 times, it will write it down in only one file.
Okay. So let me take your scenario. So for example, you are saying per day you want to execute this flow, right? Only once, right? So use a scheduler over there. We'll talk about this. You can go ahead and use a scheduler. So in run the scheduler only once a day. Okay. So it will pick 1,000 records from your source system. Okay. It will come back your batch processing. Okay. And in your batch processing, what is your batch size? You want to set it 1,000 or you want to set it 100? If you set it 100, right? There is no way you can write it in single file, because multiple threads will be executing that. They will create multiple files.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead and say 1,000. So these 1,000 records will be processed in one batch by one thread. Okay, so it will come, the 1,000 records are coming over here. Now those will get processed. Whatever processing you want to do on those records, if you don't want to do, keep empty. If you don't want to perform anything, just keep that processor section empty. Okay, have just simply logger or something like, you can keep empty also. And go ahead and put a write option here, whether it's insert database, write to the SFTP, and this aggregator section, you can set 1,000. This 1,000 will get, so it will come to batch step, nothing is processing, it will keep on iterating till 1,000. Once 1,000 is done, it will come to the aggregator section. Aggregator section, you have operation to write it to the database or SFTP or local. All those 1,000 records will be written to that file. So only once you are executing, right? So you can go ahead and give a name to this file accordingly. So today's date, let's say. You can go ahead and give today's date. Tomorrow you'll get next day, right? Separate date. So for each date, you'll get a single file with 1,000 records in your target location.
In reality, we don't know that the data is 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 or 500. We don't know.
Okay, so what is the
Yeah.
requirement? You want all the records in one file?
Yep.
Then don't set this aggregator size over here.
Okay.
Once the record will get processed, it will write it to the
Same file.
okay. So per day only once.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. Got it. So I'm just asking different scenarios, right?
Yeah. I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay. So this is our batch job. Now at the end, we'll be at on complete section here. All the batches are done, all these things, all threads are done. It will come at this point. And this point will have all the information, how many records were loaded, how many records were processed successfully, how many records are failed. And this is a really important information. I don't need to track anything. Automatically, one job will be available at this section and I'll be having all the data.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go ahead quickly see this scenario and we'll come back. So let's go ahead and have a look at it. So I'll save everything. What we'll do, let's have a look at it. Okay. So at the batch, I say one record because we wanted to play with a small set of record right now.
Yep.
Okay. Let's go ahead and let's keep only two batch. Okay. Delete. Let's first play with single batch. Okay. And instead of this, what I'll say, delete this batch aggregator. And I'll say simple file write. Okay. So I don't know what SFTP. So we'll go ahead with the file write. Okay. We'll drag this guy over here. And flow reference, I don't want any flow reference here. We'll simply add a logger over here. Okay. And we'll add a message processed. Payload. Okay. And since we want to process it, right, we need a
Transform.
data. So here we'll go and we'll simply generate JSON and okay. So we are going to see this, but let's show you. So if you write something like 1 2 10 space see here it generates array for me. Okay, now we'll use the same array in our, so here we are saying what, okay, we'll say, okay boss, go ahead and play with two record at a time. Okay, so I have 10 records. Okay. So here we'll add a quick listener. Whatever is coming default, we'll take it as it is and I'll say batch. Okay, let's go ahead here. And in the batch state processing, right now we have not configured anything. So I'll just go ahead and delete it. I don't want to configure anything. First job, right? Then batch aggregator, what we'll do instead of 200, what we'll say, hey, I want 5 records. Okay. But batch size is 2. Can I go ahead with 5 batch aggregator 5? No way.
No.
In batch step, I'll get only 2.
2.
Now what we'll go ahead here in the batch. Okay. So we'll say instead of 2, we'll say 5 here. So 2 batches will be created. Here we'll say, hey, go ahead and write 3 records in a single file. Okay. While writing a file, we'll give a path over here. So let's go ahead first, get the working directory. So we'll go ahead and say, select working directory. We are writing, right? So we'll say outbound.
So there is nothing like compulsory that we need to go to workspace, right?
No. This is
Okay,
local,
we
right?
just
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So you just
I'm just selecting one. Yeah.
Mhm.
And now here I'll say file name. Okay. So maybe what we'll select is we'll say now I'll say function. Okay. And as a string, and we'll say concat single quote, I'll say dot ext. Okay. And this AS has to be capital. Okay. So with timestamp, we'll go ahead and write a file over here. Okay. So batch aggregate is also done. And finally, at the on complete, we'll, okay. So this is on complete. Complete. Okay. Okay. Save everything. Let's run this and see what happens. We cannot debug it, okay, because it's a multi-threaded. You won't be able to see the sequence at all.
okay.
Okay. Or maybe what we can do is, I'll in the next step, what we will do, only put a debugger over here and see. Because all thread will execute this section. Finally, it will come to at the end, it will come to the logger. Okay, let's see that. Let's see the moment. Okay. So let's see what happens right now. So we should be able to expect multiple files in this directory. So let me open that directory. Outbound directory. Oh, outbound directory. Outbound directory. Right now it's empty. On. Right now it's empty. It's getting deployed. Okay, deployed. Let's go to our postman. And in our postman, the local host, right? 8081. We'll just say batch and execute it. So we are getting output. So if you remember, right, final output will be our batch job, immutable batch job result object, which will be having all the information about how many records were loaded, since how many failed records, how many loaded record, load factor, and all that things will be there. Since we have not converted into JSON, that's the reason we are able to see the Java object. Okay, so if you convert into JSON, you'll be able to see proper output over here. Okay, but let's see what has been logged, what has been written to the file. So if you go to the console, hope you got my point.
Yes.
Okay, so let's close this. So now if you see here, I think there is something wrong with my collection. Instance status is failed records. Job has been stopped. Could not find a transformer. So if you see, we have configured 0 here, right? So the first record itself, it throws error. Okay, and it says that we have reached the maximum failed allowed, maximum whatever configuration we have, we reach there. Okay, so if I say -1 here, it won't stop. Okay, and we'll do here transform. Here we'll just convert that final output into JSON, and we'll just say payload here, save everything. I just wanted to see what is the error. Batch aggregator, we have in the file, we are writing a payload. Yes, all looks good. Here, it's a JSON, it's an array. This is configured perfectly fine. Let's see. Okay. Console. It's deployed. Let's clean this console. Trigger one more time. Send. So you can see here, now you're able to see the data, right? See, total records process 10, successful records 0, failed records 10. Right? This kind of metrics will get it out of the box without any writing any custom code. Okay, now we'll see what's going wrong with this guy. Payload. Instead of JSON, let's try to give Java. Stop. Stop. Debug. Save. Change the perspective. Put logger endpoint over here. Finally, endpoint over here. So if somebody asks you, right, what is the final output from the batch job, you can go ahead here on the logger activity or on this activity, and you see here batch job result. This is called data sensing service running inside our endpoint studio. It will tell you what output this guy will be generating. Okay, see here batch job result. This is the object. We'll get it. Inside that object, we'll be having a lot of information. How much time it spends on that execution, what is the job instance ID, how many failed records, failed on which phase, how many process record, successful record, total record. This information will be coming from our batch job processing. Okay, let's see what's going on now. So if I go to my console, it's getting deployed. It's deployed now. Let's go to our, it will wait here. Okay, so let's say next activity. Let's first clean it. Debugger. So right now inside my payload, nothing is there. Okay, next activity, it goes to the batch job. Now I have array list. See, I have 10. Now if I say next, next, here itself it's getting errored out. So instead of this, we'll just try to Just want to see. Okay. I saw that there was some formatting issue with the date. So I tried hard coding right now. And let's see what happens. Saved it. It should redeploy it. Done. Now if you go ahead now, it will wait here. Next activity is coming inside. The value of type immutable or it could not be transformed to desired type. Java dot input string. Okay. So here, if you see, we are getting 3 records. And if you see, the aggregator size, we put it 3, right?
Yes.
And did you notice that one thing? Randomly, we are getting record. No ordering here. See, 7,
No
8,
order.
3.
Yep.
Since these are getting randomly given, right? That's the reason we are able to see this kind of stuff. So when we are writing it, let me see, payload. Finally, we are reaching over here and save everything now. Looks like it's not able to convert that. Or let's not run in debug mode. When you trigger in multiple threads, right? Always it's issue in debugging problem. Inside the batch job, you cannot debug, right? That's a really challenge for MuleSoft to come up with some approach to debug inside the batch because it will get executed in multiple threads.
Yeah.
Okay, let's wait for this now. Okay, deployed. Let's go ahead. Go here. Clean this. Next, coming over here. Three are done. 4 are done. Fourth time it went inside the batch aggregator. Writing. Now, do I get any file over here? Yes. Open it. Looks like it's locked right now because we are processing it. Finally, if you look at here now, the payload, see a process record, failed record false, total records 10, successful record 10. If I go at the end, done, see the output. So finally, you need to come out of this, and to get the proper JSON output, this you need to say JSON and payload. Save everything. And what is there in the file? Now file is stopped, right? So let me open this. You can see the last file. Okay. Now we'll give the unique name to our file. So I'll go ahead here and say batch hyphen now as string. Okay, so I have converted the date into, so let's try to see. You can go to any of the here and just try to execute. And you can test it here itself. Okay, what output you are getting. See here. So this is how you will get. So today is 28 November 2022, 9 o'clock, 26 minute, 34 seconds. Okay, so if you are really not sure about how your string, how your script is working, you can go ahead, and we'll have, I mean, that's the reason I said, right, we'll be having session on this, so don't worry about it. Okay, clear?
Yes.
Save everything. We are trying to give a unique name to our file. Now let's have a look at it. Okay, so let's save everything. Now if you go to the console, it's getting deployed. What I've done, I've just tested that whether my file name script is correct or not. Okay.
Yeah, got it.
Now everything is deployed. Let's clean this, and let's, okay, we'll keep this file, okay, as it is, and we'll go ahead and trigger it. Now this time I'm expecting a JSON output here. So one by one we are fixing the issue. Okay, instead of implementing a working solution, I'm showing you how wherever all errors can come, right? So you can go here, change the perspective, And now say next. So now we are on logger. Everything is processed. Can we see the files here? See, 2 files. Correct. One file will have 5 records. Other file.
Fine. Yep.
Okay. So and now logger. Say next activity. Now in my see here. So have a look at it. Proper output now. Earlier we used to get Java, right? Java object, and we Java JSON object will proper render here. JSON Java object won't get rendered here, right? Because the output, text output and all those output response will be rendered by Postman properly. Java output won't get rendered properly. Okay, this is fine. Here we are fine. Let's look at the files 6, 7, 8 over here. Okay, and in other file 10 only. Now, if you remember, something is going wrong. Okay, so what happened here? We are seeing no failure records. This is fine. Aggregator level, what I'm saying, 3. Now, if I have 10 records, then I should have how many files? 3, 3, 6, 3, 4 file has to be there, right? 4 file has to be there. Now, why it is not writing those 4 files? You are getting what I'm trying to say, right? Kunal, are you clear?
Definitely. Yep,
Yeah. 4 file has to be there. Why 4 files are we are not getting? If you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, all records are here. See, one by one. Where we are logging this? At this location. That means my batch tape is processing those records. But what happened to the aggregator? Why this guy is not writing? That we need to really see. I don't have any other condition on this guy. Why it's not writing? Okay. Now, if you see, okay, within a second, those files. Now, problem is, let me try to. This is really a genuine
I think that
problem.
is overridden, right?
Yes. This is genuine problem. Okay, even we have faced this
Yep.
problem in our actual, client scenario.
Yep.
The name which we are giving, right? That is
should
not
be
enough. That is not unique name.
Mhm.
So 2 or more file are getting same name. That's the reason data is getting overridden over there. Now I did it intentionally, okay? So that you'll get a clear picture where all we can face the issues. Now, how I can resolve this? I can go
Create new
ahead
file.
and I can
Right.
add milliseconds now. So I'm
Okay.
adding milliseconds. My seconds are not working. Yeah, I don't know. Within milliseconds, I'm able to write the file. That means that's the reason more than one file is getting same file name. Now I'll fix this issue. I'll say save now. And now you'll be able to see multiple files were there. Each file will can have maximum 3 records. Now 10 divided by 3, definitely 4. So last file will have 10, whichever, one item, whichever is pending, that payload will get returned to that file, last file. Okay, clear?
Yep.
Now let's have a look at it. Okay, it's deployed now. Let's go ahead. Let's have a look at it. It's waiting for my input. Let's go to the Mule debugger. Hope you are very clear now. Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. Yeah, logger on complete. It's waiting. Done. JSON output properly. Because in the last run also, I was not seeing any error with my records. Then I thought like where my records were lost, right? Because of file name. Now have a look at file name now. See, all 4 files are there. Clear? Now if you look at, open this file. So for last successful run, we got these 2 files. Remember?
Yeah.
928. Now 932, I got these 3 different files. 4 different files. And initially we had only 1 file. So all scenario I showed you. Directly hard coding the file name, the during runtime creating the file name and creating unique file name. It was not unique. This is unique. Okay, now open any file, maximum 3 records will be there. Now see, this guy is having, this is the last file who is having that record. But you cannot guarantee here order. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Cannot guarantee order over here.
Yeah.
Because see here 895. Clear? So when the batches are getting created, you can't guarantee over there what all records will be coming to that.
So it is processing asynchronously.
Asynchronous. Right? That point also prove asynchronous, right? Batch aggregator, it waits for those many records were processed in the processor section. That point also clear. And we're writing in a bulk. That point is so clear. And we have seen some genuine scenario, error scenario also here. Clear?
And can we error out, like, if this is the error, can we error out that as well?
Error outs, yes, we need to handle at activity level. So we need to try that. And see, error out means you want to error out, you wanted to say that, okay, no, you can't stop processing up your batch. That's the reason they have given option over here, right? See, have a look at it. -1, since I have given -1,
it is going through all the records.
In any scenario, you process all the records. If I say 1 here, 1 error record it will handle. Second error if comes, right, it will jump onto the incomplete.
But can we have an error message there?
Yes. So if you want to have error message, right, properly error message, then whenever there is a error over here, right, we can have try catch block, log that error and see that. Okay. So for example, what we can do it now here, see, we can try to raise error. Okay. So let's see. Intentionally we do it. Okay. So because we don't have right now error scenario, so what we can do, I'll go ahead and I'll say simply raise error. Okay. Raise error. This is a programmatically we can raise, or we can go ahead and
this is for checking, right?
Yes. This is for checking. Okay. So can I add a raise error inside my aggregator? No way. See, it has to be in processor section. Now let's type, we'll say, we'll go ahead and we'll say app dot we'll say custom. Okay, description, we'll write a description here. Everything is fine. Save. Console. It's building it. Could not find error app dot custom. I have other way of raising it. Clear request. Localhost colon /1 / test. console. Done. Trigger. Come here. Debugger. In first error itself, it jump onto the outside. Okay. Let's see the output, what it's showing. See here. It won't go to the on complete.
Yeah, so I was about to ask. It
Hmm.
didn't go to on complete. Why?
Okay. So now, if you want to handle it, right, at the activity level, you can go ahead here and we can say wrap in and try. We are going to see all those things in error handling scenario. Now, whenever there is an error over here, right, you handle it here, move on. Okay. So what you can do here, on error, you can write it to a file. Because the problem is when you're saying here 10 records, right? So till 10 records, 10 errors are not coming, right? It will be keep on processing. Now, what will happen to the record which failed first, second, third, fourth? Those error will get lost, right? So if you want to see those, then go ahead and have it here. Keep on writing to the some file, or keep it in the object stores that it will get captured over here.
It will
Clear?
not process. It will not process in the batch aggregator. It will process outside, right?
Yeah. That's why we have seen here, right?
Yep.
Here also you can get error, right?
Yeah.
So this activity, if I go ahead and say wrap in, you can add it in try block.
Okay.
Raise error was not, we are not able to add it in the badge aggregator. So that is up to the component, right? Where we can add it, where we cannot add it, paste. If you want to capture the record level errors, we need to, write it in the file, or keep it in some location where when I come out of this batch job, I should have all those things. Okay. So that's about the batch job, and on complete, how it captures the details, and if there are errors, it won't go to the on complete, it goes out of the batch job. If I am within the range, within the threshold value, it will go to the on complete. It will show you that, hey, I got this many errors. But if you cross this threshold, it won't go to the on complete. We have seen that. It will jump out of the batch job and go out. Right? Okay. Now, one more thing, if you see here right now, the scheduling strategy is sequential. We have round robin also.
What is that?
Okay. Round robin means, if you look at this, round robin, if you go to sequential is very clear, right? So whatever batches are done. So if we go here, so this 10 records are divided into a batches. Okay. So thread will be picking this batches sequentially. Okay. Once this batch is done, this thread cannot execute any other batch. Okay. So let's say you have 3 threads assigned to your batch job. First thread will take this and it will start executing this batch. Okay, so from here it will take one record at a time, right? You're getting it, right? One record at a time, and this all will get executed one at a time. Round robin means the thread 1 will give chance this one, then thread 2 will execute this record, thread 3 will execute this record, then will come back, thread 1 will take second record, this guy will say taken second record. Round robin means every thread will get a chance to execute their threads one by one. Getting it?
No.
Okay. So round robin means what? Round robin means, let's say you have threads, right? T1, T2, T3. So T1 will get chance, T2 will get chance. It won't wait till that T1 completely done, okay?
Okay.
T2 will get chance. Whatever is pending from T1 it will be there. T2 will get chance. T3, it's like a load balancing.
Okay.
Load balancing, okay? Round robin always used for load balancing. So round robin will give chance to all the threads, whatever pending their job, it will get in next iteration. That will get finished in next iteration. Even in next iteration also it's not get finished, it will. So basically it will kind of like, hey, you have this much time, go ahead and execute. Okay, let's say for example you have 1 second, whatever you're able to do it. Then thread 2 will get chance for 1 second, then thread 3 will get chance of 1 second, then again we'll go back to thread 1, again it will get chance of 1 second. So it will keep on switching from threads. That is called round robin.
Okay.
Sequentially,
so whichever thread will be free, it will assign work to that thread, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Round robin. So every thread will be getting a job.
If thread 1, 2, 3 all are working and one is complete and 2 is still in process and 3 is free, so it will allocate work to 1 and 3, right?
Yes.
Like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so batch job at level we have this option. Now max concurrency I was talking about. So now if I go back to that formula, right? So let's say if I assign a 1 here, what will happen? My batch job will get executed in 1 only. That means all the batches will be executed sequentially. No multiple threading. So if you want to control your complete batch job in a single thread, assign this max concurrency is equal to 1. So max concurrency will control the parallel processing. This question also come in the certification saying that how you'll control the max concurrency of flow or a component which is supporting parallelism. Always there will be property. At flow level also there is a property called max concurrency. See here, flow level. So from, let's say this is the flow we are executing, right? And let me go back to my whiteboard. Now I have a flow. If it is hosted on some server, right? Multiple requests can come, correct? At a time. If it is reachable by HTTP, same time you can get n number of requests. So this flow will get executed in multiple threads. But the max concurrency, if you set it to 1, max concurrency, if you set it equal to 1, what will happen? Only 1 request at a time will get executed. Other 2 will be there in the queue. Okay. And the problem is, with this scenario, problem could be, let's say this flow. Okay, this flow is your system API. And these requests which are coming from here, right? R1, R2, and R3. If these requests are coming from process API, and process API has a timeout, let's say here, let's say this flow is taking time to execute in 1 second. Now, since you set it max concurrency is equal to 1, for this request, each request will take 1 second, right? If a processing section has a timeout of 1 second, and this needs all 3 calls, what will happen? This will get timeout. Okay, because this guy is triggering this flow 3 times. Since this guy is set it as max concurrency equal to 1, this response, all 3 response return back to process layer, it will take 3 seconds. Since it has a 3 seconds, it has a timeout of 1 second, it will get timeout. If you don't set this max concurrency, what will happen? This all 3 calls will get executed in 1 second only. The response will send back to the process API in 1 second. There is no problem of 3 seconds. Now, this scenario only to handle the something like back pressure. There is something called back pressure in MuleSoft terminology. Okay, so the MuleSoft works on Proctor pattern. There we have something called back pressure option. So this max concurrency will control your parallelism. So we have multiple components which supports this. Okay, so one of them is batch job, one of them is flow. We have something called scatter gather. We are going to discuss now that one. Okay, but is this clear? Kunal,
Yes.
max concurrency component?
Yes.
Property of, it controls the parallelism. Okay.
Yep.
Now let's quickly jump on. I'm going to discuss 2 routers now. So for example, I get a payload. Okay. And or in other words, I'll say request. Instead of payload, I'll say request. I want to process this request or payload on more than one API or a flow. Okay. And these APIs and flows are independent. Independent means their response are not related to each other, or nobody's depend on, like for example, API 1 is not depend on API 2. They all are independent. Hope you understand.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to process this and these APIs are not depend on any other, what I can do? So for example, I want to send this payload or request to the 3 APIs. I can do it in parallel. In one shot, I can send them to 3 APIs, collect their response and send it back to the caller or client. Consolidate and send it back. So what I'm doing is, the one request, I'm creating 3 copies. 1 copy, 2 copy, 3 copy. These copies of, so whenever you get a request, right, it will create a Mule event, correct?
Yep.
These are 3 copies of actual Mule event. 3 copies of Mule event will be created, pass on to all this, and automatically, without writing any code, this will get gather also. The response will gather automatically without writing any custom code. So this is called scatter. Actually, I'm scattering my request to independent systems. Okay, very, very important. If it is not independent, these systems are not independent, then I cannot send parallel request to them. Okay, if the response of these guys is depend on this API, then I cannot call parallelly them. First, I need to call this second and then pass that response to someone, and then you'll get the output. Very, very important is more than one API call, those has to be independent. So we have component called scatter gather. This is also helping me in parallel processing, but in different way. Okay. So I'm parallelly processing it by using scatter, and then I'm collecting their output without writing any code by using gather. So we have component called scatter gather. Okay, clear?
Yep.
Okay.
Can we see the scenario in
Yes,
on this
yes.
one?
Yeah. I'll come back to that point. And in one shot, we'll see both the scenarios. Now, let's say again, now look at this scenario. Now I'm getting a request. All these are patterns, okay? Integration patterns. Whatever we are discussing right now, we call them integration patterns. Okay. Now I'm getting a request. Now inside my request, I have some content. Definitely there will be there. Now, if this content has some unique value, let's say client, or let's say target system, information is there. Target system. Now, by looking at this information in my content, in my request, I'll decide where to send this request. You're getting it? So based on the request content, I'll decide whether to send it to SFDC or Oracle or SAP. But at a moment, only one. By looking at this, I'll decide based on the content of my request. And I'll select only one path, either this or this or this. Only one path will be selected from this. This is called content routing, content-based routing, content-based routing integration pattern. Only one path will be selected from available path. Now there could be a scenario, this also path matching my condition, this also matching, this also matching, but it will go in order. Whichever path satisfied, that path will be picked up. Even this path is satisfying, or even this path is satisfying. The first matching path from the top will get selected, and that path will get executed. This is called content-based routing. At a time, only one path will be selected. Okay, if nothing is selected here, there will be always default path. Then you can decide what you want to do in default. If nothing is matching, you can say that incoming request is wrong. Something wrong with the input request. Nothing is matching. This is called content-based routing. Clear?
Yep.
Okay, let's have a look at both examples now. So I'll go ahead and I'll save everything. I'll stop this guy. I'll go back to my Mule design.
We need to remove that error we created.
Which one? No, I'm not going to execute that flow.
Okay.
I'll create new. Okay. So scatter, I gather. Okay. So scenario, let's set the scenario first. Okay. So scenario, let's say I'll come back here. For scatter gather, we take a scenario. Okay. So for example, I want to have, so let's say I'm sending two integer numbers, A and B. And I want to perform addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication. These operations are not depend on any variables. Like, so for example, I have 10 and 20. I want to output something like 30 here. If I'm doing a minus 1 minus 10, 0.5, and 200. These are not depend on any, right? So we'll try to do this. So if I go ahead and say here, this is my, so we'll set the request. Core elements. Scatter gather. Transform. 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 Okay. So first let's set here and we'll set a colon 10 comma b colon 20. So this is my input. Okay. Now let's see. I don't want to do anything. So we'll just say here, this is my add. This is my subtract. This is my division. And this is my multiply. Okay. I don't want to capture anything here. Okay. I don't want to add anything. Basically, I'll just go ahead and say JSON. Basically, we'll just perform the operation here. We'll just say, what is that? Payload dot A plus payload dot B. Okay. Here I'll go ahead, Control A, Control V, only minus. Here will come. We'll say divide. And finally here will come Control A, Control V. Okay. This will be multiply. Okay. And just let's have a look at it. What happens? Okay. I'll just go ahead and add after this, and I'll just simply say payload. Sorry. Just a second, guys. Okay. Some random call. JSON. And simply we'll see what happens, what we get in this payload. See here, what I have done. I have created input, okay, A and B here, and we are passing those inputs to these guys, okay, and this all process will be executed parallelly. This process will get this process, right? Here you can have flow reference, you can do other processing on that. On incoming request, we are just simulating a scenario where I got a request where I have some information. I'm passing that information to different API calls, and those are returning response. And at the end, I'm just saying what is there in the payload. Okay, I'm not writing any custom code to collect the response from here, and accumulate here or gather here and then give it to me. No, I'm not doing that. I'm just simply saying that what is there in the payload, just tell me. Right? So let's go ahead and we'll say here listener. Kunal, are you clear with this use case?
Little bit, yeah, but we'll
Yeah.
go in deep.
Yeah, but you got it, right? The request is passed on to these 4 different operations, right?
Yep.
And these 4 different operations are getting executed and they are generating their responses.
But
Now,
which response will come in the
yeah,
capture
so
message?
yeah, which response will come, that is the output we'll see. But did I do any custom coding to collect those responses at one place? No.
No.
I'm not done. Did I write any code to pass this request to the multiple operations parallelly? No. I have a component. I just added the operations in the 4 path. Let's see now what happens. So the listener, will configure this listener console. We'll take whatever is there default. We'll say scatter hyphen gather.
Slash. We need to.
Yeah. Hyphen also I put it. Okay. Save everything. Debug. Breakpoint, and here also we put a breakpoint. Deployed. Let's go ahead. Instead of this, I'll simply say this scatter gather. It's waiting for my input. Let's have a look at it. So if I say next activity, where it goes to the scatter gather. Okay. And the payload, if you see, I have 10 and 20 right now. If I say next, it goes here, then here, then here, then here. That means random. Correct? And those are going parallelly. Then next, it's coming over here. Now have a look at my payload. Now have a look at it. This payload it's a linked hash map, and internally it has if you see here 1 2 3 yeah. So
0 1 2 3.
The output is a linked hash map. It will have keys and values, and each key will be representing a path. 0th path, first path, second path, third path, and it will be having value. So if you go here and have a look at the value, if I go to my next activity, it will show you here. See, have a look at it properly. 0th path, the payload is 30. See here, and other informations are there.
Okay, this is additional. Okay.
Yeah, and this is again a certificate question. What will be the output of the scatter gather? Okay, what will be the output of scatter gather if one of the path fails? That also we'll see in a moment. Now I have 4 paths here, right? Those 4 are getting executed parallelly. If one of them fails, what will happen? Right? But you got right now, if successfully executed all those, it will give us the linked hash map, key and value pair. Each key will represent the path and the value represent what happened inside that path. And there will be some payload property which will give me the output of that path. Okay, so every key value will have path here. See, -10. Right? Here I'll have 0.5 and here I have 200. Clear?
Okay.
If I'm not interested in other information, I can say what I can say here. I'll go here and I can say payload means the entire object, right? Payload dot dot. I can go ahead and say payload. Wherever payload is there, I'll get that as output. Okay. If you save this now, let's see what happens. The double dot means I will talk about later. Okay. What is that? You don't worry. What is that double dot means? Right now, from the payload, we are trying to see payload because we saw this payload over here, right?
Yeah.
So total is payload, right? From the payload, I'm saying give me a payload. That's it. Wherever there's a payload, give me that. Now, if it is deployed, yes, it's deployed. Let's go ahead, say trigger. Go ahead here. I'll say at the end. Okay. Go ahead. Now have a look at it. See, 30 minus 10, 0.5, 200. Clear? So it gives me that only interested wherever I'm interested in. Right? I can go ahead now here and instead of only saying this part, right? We can say here, something like so key value pair, you can pass it. Addition colon. Okay, so this will be my output of this guy. I'll go here. I'll say this is my subtraction colon in enter here. Division colon end. Okay, so if you save this, deployed. Let's go ahead now. Run this. Come here. If you look at now, see here, addition, subtraction, division, multiplication. Clear?
Sure.
Now let's go ahead quickly and see one scenario. So for example, let's say intentionally what we'll do, we'll go ahead and we'll try to do something wrong over here. Okay, in this path. My favorite, always http:// localhost 8082 test.
802.
Anyway, we are going to create issue, so
Yeah.
Nothing matter what we are writing there. Right. So now, very important, right? If something goes wrong in one of the path, what should be my output now, right? Let's see where it goes. Okay.
Yep.
Really important in point of understanding what is going on. So it's deployed now. Let's go to the Mule debugger perspective, trigger it. Let's have a look at it, what happens. Okay, so this time we'll go one by one. Okay, instead of jumping on directly to the last breakpoint, we'll go inside. We'll see here executed successfully. This guy throws error. Okay, error. Now what will happen? Where it will go? Is it going to the next activity? No, it won't go. It will stop processing there itself. It will jump onto the error handling section, and error handling section will have some other scenario. Let's see what happens and what will be there in the output. See, only error. Okay, now if you remember in the SRB listener, we have this configuration. That's the reason we are able to see this. If I go ahead and see the payload, what will be there in the payload? Right? So we can go to the listener, and in the responses section, instead of this, what we'll say give me a payload. Let me see what is there in the payload. Right? Output of my scatter gather. Whether this result is there, or this result and then error, this result and this result. What is there exactly in the output of this scatter gather? I just wanted to see. Okay, so I changed that payload. Now it will get deployed. Let's have a look at our console. Hope you are okay with this kind of discussion, Kunal.
Yes, I'm fine with it. Yeah.
Okay. So let's wait for the deployment. It's deployed. Let's go ahead. Now, instead of this error, I want a payload, okay? Because I wanted to see that what is going wrong with, or what is there exactly in my payload. I'll say next activity. It didn't go to the next activity here. I got it error. I'll go to next. Next. It is going to here. See here. Now what happened? What is there in the payload?
Okay. Yeah.
Right? In case of error scenario, now have a look at it. What happened? Nothing has been added to my payload. Whatever payload was here, that payload is still there. Right? That means if anything goes wrong, the payload won't get changed. I won't be able to get anything.
Okay.
If I want to get if I want to take this, then I have to handle it here itself at activity level. I need to go and say handle this activity level error. Okay, try cat block. Now you understand whatever is came to this scatter gather, that is still there intact in my payload. That's what we have seen here, 10 and 20. Okay, so in error scenario, payload will be as it is. Nothing will be added from the scatter gather. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now quickly we'll see in 2 minutes. We'll see one more component and then we'll stop. That won't take much time. Okay. Okay. So let me go to our scatter gather is clear. I'll go ahead and I'll say create one more. Now this time it's a choice router. Okay. Save this. Now let's go ahead. This time I'll just track listener. Okay. And choice router here. Transform and transform. Here I say JSON. Okay. I'll just write a message. Hold on. This request will be processed by SFTC. Okay, Control C, go here, Control V, go MuleSoft. Okay, Control V. There is something wrong with request. Please clear. So now from the, so what we'll do, we'll try to get the condition over here, because the router will look into condition. Okay, so for example, here I'll say I'll pass something in my attribute that will decide attributes dot query param. Okay, and I'll pass dot client. Okay, so I'll pass a client from there, and I'll say client double is equal to here Salesforce. Then if you go here, okay, Control C. If it is MuleSoft, then it will go here. Okay, and if nothing is there, nothing matches, neither is Salesforce, neither MuleSoft, it will go and say, hey, something is wrong. Okay, now instead of transform, you really write here a business logic, right? You really validate that data against the Salesforce, and then you process it according to your business requirement, right? You can have, as per your requirement, complex business logic over here instead of just a transform activity. So this will go to Salesforce. This will go to MuleSoft. Okay, now we'll see if I go here, what happens. Okay,
We need to configure listener.
Go ahead. Okay, here choice, save everything. This is also I'll run in debug mode. Okay, so one guy is already running scatter gather, so we need to stop that, clean it, debugger. One more question, just now answer was popped up here. What is the port number for debug? Did you see that port number?
666.
Yeah, 4 times 6.
4 times 6, 6.
That is again a certification question answer. Okay, debugger port number. Okay, so it's let's wait for the deployment, and we'll see if one of the path matches the condition, that path will get executed. If none of the path matches, it will go to default. Okay, it's deployed now. Let's go to our choice router. Choice, and I'll pass a query parameter called client equal to, I'll first say Salesforce. Hope I am using capital S. Salesforce. Okay. Send. This request will be processed by SFDC. If I go and say MuleSoft, it will go to MuleSoft,
MuleSoft.
right? If I say Oracle, no, there is something wrong with the request. Please look into it. Now, what we'll do? So, sorry, I didn't add. Just we'll say, okay, I forgot to add the some logger here so that we can see. Right, I'll just add attribute dot query param dot client. Okay, let's see this. Save, put a debugger point here. Deployed. Let's go ahead with this. Send. Come here. Change the perspective. If I say next activity, see here where it is going. It's going over here because both of the conditions are not matching, right? That's the reason it's going over here. The next, now if I make a change over here, Control Z, send. If you go here, next activity, it's going over here. Okay, because this path is matching. Now what I'll do, I'll intentionally do this change. Okay, I'll go here and here I'll say MuleSoft. Now, two paths are matching the condition, right? Correct? This one also matching, this one also matching. Save this, wait for deployment. So it goes in sequence, okay? First it will check this path, and this path. Clear? Kunal?
Yes, clear. I was on
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Deployed. Now if you see, send. Now this path also matching, this path also matching. Which one will get picked up? Let's have a look at it. Let's prove ourselves. See here, this path. This is also matching, right? But it will like pick first one because it's coming in sequence, top to bottom.
Okay.
Okay. If I say next, you'll be able to see wrong message here. See, I send a MuleSoft, but since the
messages,
yeah, two paths were there, matching this condition. That's the reason I could see the first one from there.
Got it.
Okay. So we'll stop here, and I'll recommend you to